Hey guys, brand manager Hannah here, back again to talk to you about branding basics and branding tips. So today we're going to actually talk about social media algorithms and break those down and talk about why they're important and how you can manipulate them in your social media strategy. So the first thing you need to understand is what an algorithm is. So an algorithm is essentially the computer system that's working in the background of social media platforms to compute problems, to identify patterns and frequencies, and to implement instructions. So when social media designers create those platforms, they give the algorithm or the computer instructions on how to act based on the data that it collects. So algorithms are constantly changing, and that seems like a huge concept that is super complicated and who cares. But the reason you should care is because the more you comply with the algorithms and the more that you feed into the frequencies and the data that it collects, the more that algorithm will show your content to the intended users that you want to see your content. So in the big picture, you have to understand that these social media creators, their main purpose and goal is to keep users on the platform for as long as they can and to keep them engaged with the content that user is seeing. So naturally, that algorithm is going to show those users the content that they think the user specifically is most interested in and most likely to engage with. So that is why engagement is so key. And when I say engagement, there are actually different rankings of engagement and what holds the most power. For example, there's obviously a like on any social media platform that you're going to go on. The like is great. It is a form of engagement, but it's the least reputable and the least impactful in the algorithm. Next would be comments. And then following that would be things like shares or reposts to your story or link clicks and conversions. Those things rank by how much power they hold, and the more of the link clicks and the saves and the shares, those are going to really hold value on that piece of content. So the more engagement a piece of content gets, the more and more that algorithm is going to show it to more people, whether that is more people that follow you or even more people that don't follow you. So one way to get people to engage with your content is to encourage comments. Ask a question in your content and say, comment your answer below, or encourage them through giveaways, or give them something that they want to save so that they can go back and look at it later. And that's how you get people to really engage with that content. And then they will continually see your stuff more, even future posts. So another thing to remember when thinking about the human brain, we all know how that works. We know that social media creators of these platforms, they really think their ideas are great and they think they're smart. So when they come up with a new feature to their app or their platform, they want to encourage you to use that. So one way that they encourage you to use new features is by promoting those in the algorithm. So the more that you learn those new features quickly and you start to use them, the more that your content will be showed above other contents. So instead of just posting a picture, it started out with stories. Stories were the number one new thing on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and then it moved to carousel posts, and then it moved to live videos or IGTV, and now the latest thing is Reels or live advertising, live videos, and things like that as the platforms evolve, they want you to use those features. So the more you use those features, the more they're going to prioritize your content and show it to the users that you want. So make sure to remember that and make sure to implement them. And in order to use those features, you have to try to stay on top of what the features are, how to use them, and how to use them correctly. So another thing that I know a lot of us want to do is, of course, we have our followers, and whether our followers are 1 billion or 100 followers, we want people outside of our following to see our content so that they will eventually follow us and eventually start to engage. So there are lots of ways to do that. Obviously, you can always advertise to do that, and that's what most people do because it is the easiest, but it's also the most expensive. So other ways to do that would be like to use hashtags. It seems so old school to use hashtags, but if you're using relevant hashtags, then people outside of your immediate followers will find that content because you hashtagged it to something they were looking up. And another great way to utilize getting people outside of your followers to engage with your content or even just see your content is to tag relevant businesses. Let's say, and relevant is the key word there. So make sure if you're tagging businesses, you're not just spamming them, but you're using businesses like platforms that you use or that are very relevant to your users or your audience, or even tag fellow people in your industry. For example, if you are taking a quote in your blog from a fellow ophthalmologist or a fellow marketing expert, then don't just take that quote, but tag them in it and tag their company and hashtag them and hashtag their company, because then they're going to be more inclined to share your stuff. And then not only are your followers seeing that blog post, but so are theirs. So there's so many things behind the algorithm, how it works, why it's important, and algorithms are constantly changing. But those three keys are typically going to stay constant because they don't have to do with the way the computer works. They have to do more with why the computer was designed and why it works that way. So I hope that you use those tips and tricks and that you start to understand the algorithm a little more and use it to your advantage instead of the other way around.